I'm Alan Watt, and this is Cutting Through the Matrix, trying to put you into a higher level of understanding instead of simply reacting to what's given to us to talk about on a daily basis, or at least see behind the reasons for it being given to us. When you understand the media could be telling us anything they want, why they pick certain stories, knowing we're going to parrot them and get all upset and flustered and all the rest of it, hot and bothered, as they say. And it's part of the conditioning program as well. Because once you've gone through this sort of avenue for a long enough time, you'll get worn down with it, thinking everything is so oppressive. But remember, it's an information battle. It's a war. And it's meant to wear you down and think that everything is so impossible and difficult to overcome. The methods of creating a reality for small groups of people were done thousands of years ago by rearing children in what we call a little laboratory. Today we call it a laboratory. And giving them a whole new reality with different gods and all the rest of it. And sure enough, just like Plato's cave, they grow up trying to fit everything into that reality that they experience from then on. It must fit into that reality, stuffed in, even though it doesn't really want to go, they'll stuff it in. And that's how the big sciences work, because if you control small groups of people, when you standardize everything, education, information, across the world, you can do it with a whole global population eventually. Now, those countries which have a natural suspicion of this system and have a lot more information, in fact, on this system than we are given, they are the last ones to go down. They must be standardized by all means possible, and we're watching it happen today as people are killed off and bombed from the air and sniped at by our own troops. I refrain from saying our troops. They're just mercenaries, because in peacetime, anyone who joins the military is a mercenary. Their god is Mercury. That's where the word comes from. Mercury was the patron saint of mercenary soldiers and merchants, because they both have something in common. They make a killing. 2004, I mentioned an article that went around mainstream newspapers of one of the advisors to presidents. Now, the advisors are very, very important people. They are taught the sciences of the mind and the mass mind, behaviorism, and so on. They understand all the marketing ploys which are used to put out the PR to the public and how we will perceive things. There's an old saying, if you have 3 or 4 men marching in step, you can do an awful lot more than 100 men all walking at their own pace and doing their own thing. And when you go back to 2001 and all the same faces came around in their circles one after another, then back to the beginning and all around the circle again of weapons of mass destruction, caw, 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 then that's what we're doing. They're working in step by using phrases and slogans as Lenin said they would do. But this particular article came out in 2004 was a little boast, you see. It came from one of these characters who are very, very pleased with themselves, knowing they could pull off what they have pulled off, and knowing it's not just about the invasion of Iraq. It's a whole 100 years war, remember, to change the entire world and everything in it. An entire way of life for everyone, including a planned society. We must never, ever lose sight of that. Everything else pales in comparison to it. And this article says, we are an empire, and when we act, we create our own reality. It's subtitled Scheherazade. Scheherazade is one of the Arabian stories, very well worth reading. Scheherazade in the White House, how George Bush wartime administration used a magician, Hollywood designers, and Karl Rove, telling 1001 stories to sell the invasion of Iraq. And Scheherazade, as I said, was from the 1001 Nights. And It's about the daughter of the advisor to a sultan who could tell endless stories. If she didn't tell a story, she would be killed because the sultan had been betrayed by his wife. And after sleeping with each one in turn, he'd kill them until this one came along who would leave him tantalized with a cliffhanger. So he had to tune in the next day and keep her alive. And she was very good. She spun this forever. And that's what we have, giving us a reality. Scheherazade in the White House. And this was by Christian Salmon, S-A-L-M-O-N, in Le Monde Diplomatique, Paris, France, 1st of January 2008. A few days before the 2004 presidential election, Ron Suskind, a columnist who had been investigating the White House and its communications for years, wrote in the New York Times about a conversation he had with a presidential advisor in 2002. The aide said that guys like me were in what we call the reality-based community, which he defined as people who believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. I nodded and murmured something about Enlightenment principles and empiricism. He cut me off. That's not the way the world really works anymore, he continued. We are an empire now. And when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will, we'll act again, creating other new realities which you can study too. And that's how things will sort out. We are history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left to just study what we do.